This week on Bruh Meets World.
At one point, Nunzio was just saying, "Oh, you're with Topanga? Oh, isn't she just the most amazing?" And just gushing over Topanga. And it's like Cory never says nice shit like that about Topanga. Like it was just interesting to just show like men who can communicate and listen.
When this boy meets world.
What up, bros?
What up, bros?
And welcome to Bruh Meets World.
When this Bruh Meets World.
Your boy Meets World fan cast. I'm Ceej.
And I am Tony Curtis. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I honestly am so good. We have been doing season 7 for a few weeks now, and we're taking a break this week to go back in time to season 5 to do an episode that was missing from our library. And the joy of going back to season 5 has really done something to me. Like, I needed a season 7 break. 3 episodes in, I needed a break.
It's so funny that you say that. Yes, you guys, you have been asking for it. Originally, we recorded season 5, episode 10, Last Tango in Philly. And when we were doing season 5, the file got corrupted. And so many of you are like, where is your Last Tango in Philly? Well, we thought we would do you a favor and re-record that episode. So we're doing a little rewind.
Ceej, I don't know if you know this, but we originally recorded this in April of 2021. There's been some time since our last watch of this. And honestly, I think the distance made me appreciate this episode more.
I completely agree. I will completely what's really funny is watching this episode after being in season 7. I was like, I guarantee you we were harder on this episode than I will be having watched this now.
1,000%. And that really makes me wonder about our grading system in general, because I feel like sometimes seasons will rub us the wrong way for whatever reason, but we'll grade them kind of, I don't know, maybe too harshly, because I have my original grade for this episode, and I'll tell you, it does not match the grade I have today.
See, I don't have my original grade, but I can say that you know what? I stick by. I give my grades like all criticism. You give what you got when you know what you know. And when you learn better, you're like, there are lots of movies and television that we look back on and we're like, actually, that was a lot better than we gave it credit for. Mm-hmm. There are also a lot of movies and television that we go back to and we were like, why did I like this?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's the world of criticism. That's the world of critique. And before we do go any further, I do want to say to you guys, thank you. As always, you've been reaching out to us on all the social platforms. You can continue to do so at bruhmeetsworld@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on any of the social platforms. Also, as we've said previously, if you want an ad-free experience, check out our Patreon. We'll talk more about that later on in the episode. However, I know what you guys want more than anything is to get right into it. Let's do our Tell Me About It.
Okay, here it is. Tell us about it. Yeah, the girls just want to dance, but all of the men in Philly are dumb until they learn that dancing is fun.
That was a really good one. That was good. Short and sweet. All right, you guys. This is season 5, episode 10, Last Tango in Philly. Cory and Shawn are loco with jealousy when the girls get jobs at a Mexican restaurant and start dancing the night away with 2 handsome, suave co-workers. Soon, they, along with Alan, Eric, Jack, and Mr. Feeney, try to figure out the hidden meaning behind women's words. What could women mean? And there you go. That's our
first impressions of this episode.
First impressions is, I will say, I looked at this episode and I was like, when did the Full Monty come out?
Yes.
That was like the first, and the Full Monty came out, it says, in theaters August 15th, 1997. This episode came out December 5th, 1997. So it feels like it's too soon for this to be influenced by the movie. But also, I'm like, this is Hollywood. I feel like someone caught an early script, an early release, and they were just like,
was Full Monty a movie first?
Yeah.
Before it was a show?
Maybe it was a show first. I don't know. I do know that for those of you who don't know, The Full Monty, as I said, is a movie in 1997 about a group of men who put on an all-male rave. a
Well, it's
lot
like
of
a male
dancing.
stripping. It's like the Magic Mike of the UK. Yeah.
But it's Magic Mike with everyday men. Like
Yeah.
that's the twist of it all, is that they are not exactly Matthew McConaughey. They are them.
They are men.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what women want, apparently. And that was my first reaction. And again, my reaction was, as much as I have problems with this, we're not quite season 7, so you're doing a good job. You're doing great, sweetie. Keep it going. What was your first reaction?
You know, I gotta say, I recall us first watching this episode in our initial season 5 run, and I remember us being so annoyed and so frustrated with Cory and Shawn in this episode.
I still am.
Cory is all of the things we hate about Cory in this episode. However, I have to say, I mean, technically, I guess we're no longer in the year of Barbie, but to be within the wake, I guess, of Barbie, and to be in the wake of this like highly cartoonish look at hypermasculinity and the way that men function in the world, you know, in the same way that kind of Ken does in that movie. I feel like the boys are an extreme version played up for laughter in the way that works for me. And I don't think it worked for me the first time I saw it. I think I was just so like rolling my eyes at the way they were treating the girls. But when I took a step back and just saw the story that was being told about the way men communicate, I was like, this is funny. This works, and I'm here for it. So we can get into the weeds of it, but that was my initial impression.
I'm going to push back on that it's funny. I will say that it works a little bit better this time around. And with a little bit of distance. But is it funny? Again, to me, this was, I think we've talked about it previously, but there's a difference between writing jokes and just situational comedy. And there aren't a lot of written jokes here. There's just a lot of awkward moments and laugh tracks.
I'll say this. Maybe funny is not the right word.
Yeah.
Fun. I had fun watching the episode, which is a different thing.
That's a different thing. And I agree with you. Having fun. You have a lot of fun with this episode.
Yeah.
And, all right. So let's start off with our roll call, because we have 2 people who are very integral to this story. We have a Jonathan Del Arco who plays Nunzio. He is better known as Dr. Morales in The Closer. That was one of his regular series. And then there's Matt Cedeno, who is Sergio. He plays Brandy's husband in last year's Best Christmas Ever. If you thought he looked familiar, that's where you know him from. And then the last 2 that we're going to get into is Lexi Marai as Sonia. She is one of the weightlifting girls. I could not find information on the other weightlifting girl, but good for Lexi. She's now a director. And then we have Sue Casey, who plays Catherine, who is the older female who turns Feeney's eye. So yeah. That's our roll call.
Okay, let me start by this. I think I know the answer to this question, but it feels appropriate to talk about it here. Have you ever waited tables?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so right off the bat, I just have to say, on behalf of the girls, I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated with Cory and Shawn. Don't be coming to my job. I just started here. Are you trying to get me in trouble with my boss? Like, I was feeling all of that rage.
Absolutely. So thank you. You flipped the switch and I'm back in anger mode. Because as much as I enjoyed this episode, the beginning of this episode makes me so angry. For anyone who has worked in food service, to have them come there and voluntarily just be assholes and be rude to them, and they're like, oh, we're just kind of putting you through the run, so when other people are rude to you, you know how to deal with it. It's like, or you don't be dicks when they have a job. Like, they are working. If anyone should sympathize and be aware of what it's like, it is Shawn, who
100%.
comes from a working class family. That is not saying that Cory isn't a working class family. It's just saying that I expect this behavior from Cory. But Shawn, come on.
Now that you say that, can I just say that it's weird that Shawn doesn't have a job?
Yeah.
We never see him with a job throughout high school. And I just feel like that is completely unrealistic for a boy who is, having to get so independent and self-sufficient on his own. Like, I don't know if season 5, he's with his parents, question mark. I don't know. So it's like, what's he doing for money? There's questions here.
Very good point. And that was my thought as well, which is like, why we're kind of in this place with season 7 where we are rewriting these episodes. It's like, why is Shawn not working? Like, Shawn should also be working at this restaurant. I mean, if Topanga and Angela decided that, hey, they needed more money and they should go get jobs, Shawn should have been right there with them.
I also think the show could work with Shawn working there as well, and Cory just being like, if Shawn still doesn't want to go dancing, the show still works.
Yeah, absolutely. It still works, but they just needed them to be a pair. Also, I would say the pairing this week felt this episode, even though, as we were saying, we had more fun this episode, especially compared to some of the season 7 episodes, it felt of a different time, and I could feel the voice of someone. I know Jeff Manel actually wrote this one, who we're going to reach out to a little bit later, but it felt just of a different time and voice. Do you know what I mean? Like, the idea of two guys being like, hey, we don't dance, and going to the gym, which we've never seen them do. And it
felt very Ken to me. It just felt very like performative masculinity. It's, Cory suggesting that we need to go to the gym and pump iron as our response to the girls wanting to dance. Men don't dance. Oh, wait, these are men that dance? Wait, now that's making me question what masculinity actually is. Maybe I have the wrong impression of it. I don't know. There's interesting things here.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. Like, I think that this episode has a great argument, especially the conclusion. I really like where we go. I just feel like the setup, especially the first act, feels like a script from a different show.
I was especially annoyed with Cory and Shawn so they're super obnoxious to Angela and Topanga when they first start working there at the first scene. And then they're like, hey, you guys just started this job. Take us out to dinner after this. That was just like, dude, you see them working hard, right? Like, you don't want to do anything for them. Like, it's clearly their first job ever. So
yeah, I mean, as far as we know,
cut them some slack. Yeah.
Not only that, but again, it's interesting because what we do, the setup is these girls are working, they have new jobs. They're like, hey, do you want to hang out with us afterwards? We're going to go dancing with some coworkers. And again, we get this very macho, men don't dance, I'm not dancing situation. And we also kind of get this kind of ignorant mentor in Cory, in the fact that Shawn is like, my relationship with Angela is brand new. I feel like I should be going out of my way to make her feel comfortable. And again, this is what made it feel almost Flintstones honeymooner-esque, in the sense of Cory being the established relationship guy who's like, I'll tell you how to handle your woman. You know what I mean? And Shawn just being like, okay, I trust you. And then Cory
getting wrong advice every single turn. It's classic sitcom. It really
classic sitcom, but that's what I'm saying. It feels classic sitcom and not high school sitcom, which we've established.
Sure. I mean, I really enjoyed the dynamics of it. I liked Cory being this mentor figure for Shawn for once. I think that's a funny switch up. And I also feel like there's some funny things happening with Nunzio and Sergio. Like, I feel like their performances are actually really great. And like, I feel like this works because of how they perform it.
Well, absolutely. What I was going to say is we get the twist of, hey, we want to we want to go dancing with coworkers. The boys say no, men don't dance. And then guess who the coworkers who are going dancing are? They're men. They're Latin men. This is like right before Ricky Martin comes in. We're just all that Latin sensation hits America, and it's all we can do. And I just saw this, and I was just kind of like, okay.
Nothing to scare a white man like a brown man dancing with his girl.
Exactly. Absolutely that. But to your point, Sergio and Nunzio, they are nothing but supportive. It's actually kind of interesting to see that the show paints not all men, hashtag not all men, not all men are ignorant to what women want. these men are.
Sure.
Cory and Shawn are. Because Nunzio seems to understand exactly what's going on, big picture all around.
And can I also say I appreciate that they didn't make Nunzio or Sergio gay? Not that I have an issue with there being gay characters on the show, but the idea of the show that no, there are straight men who can dance with women, who can be romantic, who can talk highly of women. Like at one point, Nunzio was just saying, "Oh, you're with Topanga? Oh, isn't she just the most amazing?" And just gushing over Topanga. And it's like Cory never says nice shit like that about Topanga. Like it was just interesting to just show like men who can communicate and listen as a stark example.
And I think to your point, it's interesting that we show that men from different cultures can appreciate their women. They do understand that Topanga is beautiful and rare and intelligent and has some moves. You know, like they're excited to be with these girls. And the men in America are supposed to be like, this old ball and chain again. Like again, it's almost like Cory is teaching Shawn how to be a man and in passing on that inheritance of this is how you treat your woman once you have her.
It was really funny to me that so the guys go and work out because they don't want to go dancing, and then the next day the girls are talking about just how tired they are from being up dancing all night, and you know, they have this conversation with the girls where the girls are like, "Hey, we like dancing. We asked you to come. You said no." Like, I feel like this is almost a conversation that happens every scene, but in a way that just kind of show to the audience how blatant the answer is. Like from act 1, you're like, "Oh, just take the girls dancing." Yeah. But I think it's intentional. It's intentional to show that sometimes men just cannot take a hint, even when it's so blatant and right in front of them. And I think that is the commentary being made here. So because I feel like this commentary being made, I can ignore the fact that Cory and Shawn are so like ignorant to an answer that's right in front of them, that they have to be told over and over and over again that this is what the girls want, because I'm understanding that this is a metaphor for a larger issue between men and women.
Absolutely. And I think to your point, this is something that the show is trying to teach us. Again, this is a show that is supposed to teach high schoolers how to enter the real world.
Yeah.
But to your point, we also do it in a way that in some instances is kind of ahead of its time for the 90s of teaching this lesson. But in other instances, it leans on so many old-fashioned tropes, and it doesn't really condemn the boys in the way that it should. For example, they go directly to Nunzio. Well, actually, Topanga and Angela are talking to each other, and they are like, "Hey, maybe we're being too hard on the guys."
Yeah,
and it's like,
they
you're
have
not.
a moment. Well, it was interesting because what I liked about that moment was Nunzio says something like, "If you were dancing with guys who look like me, I'd be upset too." And this was a moment where the girls were like, "You know what? Maybe even though the guys are being jerks and they're not listening to us, maybe we can empathize with the fact that like we are dancing with these attractive men. Maybe they are jealous and we should give them the benefit of the doubt." And immediately Cory and Shawn walk in with their girlfriends from the gym to make them jealous, and they're like, "Nah, fuck all of that noise." Like
exactly. And that like so first of all, that comedic twist of women being like, "Hey, maybe we're being too hard on them and we're not thinking about it from their perspective." And the women come in and they're like, "You know what? I will, even though you were coming to my job and disrespecting me and adding to my workload in the middle of the day and wanting to have my attention while I'm also being paid to give attention to someone else," the classic work of women who have to be caretakers but also address their man. Even though that's going on, I'm going to say that maybe I'm overreacting, be diplomatic here, and give you the benefit of the doubt. And then you come in and you make it worse by trying to one-up me in a way that this wasn't even a competition.
Okay, and I don't even like the boys don't even understand it. They don't even understand, because it's not just that we brought these girls here. It's the fact that we're actually going to take them out on the little date. Cory says, "Order whatever you want," and then calls over his girlfriend to wait on him and his date. That's wild.
Well, to your point, Cory just asked Topanga and Angela to pay for his food. So you can't support me at my job, but you taking other bitches on?
Exactly.
Do my job in my face.
Oh, and we completely overlooked that in between all of this, Cory and Shawn showed up at their job looking to beat up their boss, looking to beat up Sergio or whatever. And it was just so funny that like they thought they could beat up Sergio and Nunzio at all. I mean,
well, there's that. Like, again, we're hitting the gym, and I think this is a perfect time to bring in what you were talking earlier, the performance of masculinity. This idea that Cory and Shawn, for the very first time, we see them, and again, Jack's not there, who we know and like understand.
Well, at this point, is not really that dude yet. He's not a gym rat yet.
I know he's not a gym rat yet, but I'm just saying there was an opportunity to have all four men, i.e., Jack, Eric, Shawn, Cory, all go to the gym. Maybe they say we'll go to the gym with Jack and Eric, who will already be there. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
This idea of like, okay, all the men are here, and it's a way for them to come together and have a conversation. Just men having conversations is like kind of what I want. But instead, it's Cory and Shawn going to the gym for the very first time that we've ever seen them do this, and they are doing so specifically to reinforce their masculinity. That's what Cory says that this is for.
Well, Cory's really funny because even at the gym, he says something to the effect of, girls are so complicated, why can't they be more like men? And I was just like, oh, well, now we're getting something. Now we're getting somewhere.
Now we're getting somewhere. And
well,
then,
do you want them to be more like men, Cory? Like, do you want to talk about that?
But then, to your point, the women that we see are women who are not the traditional female body types. They are big, bulky women, which is not a problem, but I'm just saying it reinforces this idea that these boys are not looking for women and people who behave like women. They are looking for reinforcement of masculinity.
Yeah, and it's playing on their ideas of what femininity is as well by having these women come in who are clearly stronger than them. I cannot go on anymore without talking about the fact that Cory promises one of the girls a green card.
Yeah, exactly.
That is wild. That is a wild way to gaslight a girl into going out on a date with you.
Exactly. This episode shows Cory does not see consequences. Shawn sees consequences. When Shawn and Angela in the very beginning, they're like saying what they want to say. And Angela's like, hey, do you want to go dancing, Shawn? And Shawn looks to Cory and says, this isn't going to come back to bite me, is it? And Cory goes, no. And he goes, I don't want to go. And immediately Sergio and Nunzio show up and he's like, oh, shit. Like, I'm paying for it. Sure. And every single time Shawn makes a decision, Shawn gets a consequence, whereas Cory doesn't. And I think that that's kind of like what's like we talked about what grating us about Cory is not facing consequences in the way that we would expect him to.
I mean, yeah, he could definitely face more extreme consequences, but I do think that the consequence is the fact that Topanga is getting more and more frustrated and annoyed with him. What do you mean you called my job looking for me? Why are you showing up to my house at midnight, Cory? Like, she is calling him out, not at the extreme that I would like, but as of however, they're supposed to be 17 years old at this point. Like, I can appreciate at least her standing up for herself and saying, you shouldn't be at my house at midnight. You shouldn't be calling. Like, when Cory's like, I forbid you from seeing him. And she's just like, I'm not even responding to you. I'm walking away. Like, I wish a little bit more, but at least we're getting something.
That's not a consequence. But here's the thing. I love the fact that, as you said, the girls go out dancing again. And so we're all over the place on this episode, but while we're at the gym, Cory goes to a payphone. I was like, payphone. He goes to the payphone, calls the restaurant, and they're like, hey, the restaurant's closed. It's after hours. If you need us, which, by the way, why would you leave a voice message that, hey, all of the employees are at the Boom Boom room?
No, I actually think that was Nunzio and Sergio fucking with them because they were like, hey, if you need us specifically, Nunzio, Sergio, Angela, Topanga, we're out dancing. Everyone else you can leave. I was like, no one leaves a voicemail like the night of a restaurant to say, call me at the club. No way.
Exactly. So anyway, they go out and then Cory shows up to Topanga's
aunt's house.
It says, He says, "What are you doing here?" She goes, "I live here."
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. But then from that, he goes on this raid about, where is she? She shouldn't be out dancing. I forbid you. And she's like, I invited you to come, and you can't forbid me to do anything.
Yeah.
And I like that once he gets to that level, Topanga doesn't engage. I do like that. And she's just like, you're not in your right mind. I'm going to let you think on what you are saying. But the problem that I have, to take it back, is that Cory doesn't face consequences. He learns a lesson through Eric, kind of, not through Topanga. There are no consequences. Topanga doesn't stop calling him. They specifically say that the boys haven't spoken to the girls in 2 days. So they're the ones who cut off communication, not the girls. The girls are always understanding. They're always trying to do their jobs and be supportive girlfriends and just have a good time because their boyfriends won't take them out dancing, yet these other guys will. And Cory never learns a lesson. That's the problem that I have, is that Cory doesn't learn the lesson through any actions of Topanga or even seeing the error of his ways in his behavior. It's only through Eric.
Again, like coming from season 7, Cory learning any lesson at all, regardless of who it's from, is a win to me. It is a win. Cory learned, like, hey, the girls like to dance. I don't like doing this thing, but it's going to make them happy. I'm going to learn a little jig and show my girl that I can appreciate something she's interested in. Regardless if it came from Eric, I'm here for this lesson. There's learning still happening. It's a bare minimum that I have should always be a bare minimum, but coming from season 7, I'm like, that's a full course meal for me. I'll take it.
Okay, well then, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, and I can't change that.
I do want to say that this is maybe a good opportunity to start bringing in some of the other men that are going on in the storyline because they all converge at once. And I want to specifically talk about Alan and Feeney. So Alan has this, I don't know, this bit where he buys a satellite TV on a Saturday night and Amy's upset. She's like, this is how we're spending our Saturday night. He's like, oh, I'm just going to set this up real fast and then we'll take long. Clearly, this is going to take him the entire episode. Which, by the way, a man buying a satellite TV and getting excited about it while his wife chastises him is the most trope sitcom situation I've ever seen. But we need tropes in these circumstances because we don't have time to invest in all of these characters in relationships. So I'm fine with it. Feeney has more emotional intelligence than anyone else on this show. Yet, for whatever reason, Feeney does not realize when a woman casually walks into his fucking backyard saying, I'm on my way to get coffee, that she was looking for an invite to hang out with him. So I just thought, like, it's very interesting to have Eric be the voice of reason between Alan and Feeney, whereas Alan and Feeney, at least Feeney more than Alan, have always been the voice of reason and the understanding one who's able to communicate to the men what's going on.
Yeah. That's exactly what I said. That's why I have a problem with this episode. It's like, I can have fun and say that these are hijinks, but also question what we're doing and what kind of world we're building. To your point, you're like, this is a sitcom. We don't have time to establish relationships. We are setting Feeney up with someone brand new. Yep. We know Alan and Amy are married. So what are we doing?
Well, it's this idea that again, if I'm writing this episode, if I have 22 minutes and I mostly want to focus on Cory and Shawn, but I want to bring in Feeney and Alan and Jack and Eric, these kind of tropey, Jack gets a phone call from a girl who's like, oh, I'm sick. I could use some soup. And I went bowling and she got mad at me. It's so just like, it's right there. It's so obvious. And I love that all of these men are having these issues that are so obvious, yet I could see them taking any of these issues and spending an entire episode on it if they really wanted to.
But to your point, Alan is married and has been successfully married for quite some time. Why not have Alan be the voice of reason? Feeney as you said, has constantly been the voice of reason. Why not have Feeney be the one who has the insight? Why give it to Eric? And that's my only thing. My only gripe is, why is Eric the one who's getting this when we have people who have been married, who are aware and older and more experienced? And you know how I am. Team Eric has a different form of intelligence. Eric's intelligence is very much emotional and he's empathetic. So I understand him doing that. But considering that I know in season 7 we take this nowhere, it is 2 seasons later, and we never actually let Eric be the emotionally intelligent person who was rewarded for being emotionally intelligent, then I don't need it to be him. I need him and Jack to be confused as to why the girls aren't. And maybe even Feeney being like, hey, I'm older, I'm forgetting what it's like to be in the field. And then Alan, the experienced husband, coming in and being like, you guys, it's so obvious.
Yeah, I agree that the voice of reason should have been Alan or Feeney. And the reason why it shouldn't have been Eric is for all the reasons you said, but also for the fact that even up until this point, we've never seen Eric have a successful relationship with a woman. He is a good-looking guy who can't get a date. So, like, why is he the person being the, like, woman whisperer? You know what I was thinking of? I don't know how, I think it was probably a few years prior to this episode coming out, but I feel like throughout the 90s, I remember coffee table books like that I would go to my mom's house, friends' houses and things like that, like watching Oprah talking, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It was just this
I knew where you were going.
Classic book that was so popular in the 90s, talking about how men and women speak different languages. And to me, I'm thinking that this episode was more that than it was Full Monty. Obviously, some Full Monty influences, but really kind of, I think they had this idea of men are from Mars, women are from Venus. What can we do with that concept to make an episode? And I see that sprinkled throughout.
Absolutely. Because again, if we go back to it, it's this whole thing of there was a moment, you know, of which moment, where Eric says, what if we tried listening to them? And they all laugh. And then at the exact same time, they're like, but what do women want? How can we solve this? And it's played for jokes, it's played for laughs, but I would like for them to not just have it happen as an epiphany. I would love it if, again, one of the older men was like, you guys, we're overthinking this. It's so simple. And if they said that, then we lead to the dance number. Then what we have there is an acknowledgement of they have told us what they want. They have communicated. We, as their partners, aren't listening, and we're not making the right decisions, and we're not being respectful of their wants and needs. That's what I want. And I'm sorry, it's a lesson that I feel is deserved, because what we get instead is the grand gesture.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because a grand gesture to me has always been taught as, hey, if you've learned a lesson, if you want to make something right for someone, you need to do a grand gesture, specifically one that's public. And that is the ultimate way to, sitcoms used to have this all the time where they'd have these public apologies in the middle of like a school dance and everyone would be listening. It's like, no one's fucking paying attention to your bullshit. But I just think that's kind of a dangerous way of showing evolution, because what it shows is that, hey, I'm going to work hard at this one time. It doesn't show like, hey, I'm going to make a commitment to kind of continue to do this. So if we saw them going dancing with the girls again after this episode, that would show me that there was a learn that happened here. Or if the girls even mentioned going dancing with the boys again, but it just never comes up. So to me, it made it seem like they did one grand gesture and then never did it again.
Exactly. And that was my only point to this, is that there is no streamline from, hey, we started off ignoring the girls' needs. We learned that the problem was we weren't communicating our own wants and needs and insecurities and listening to it when the girls said theirs. And then based on the knowledge that we were not listening to them and we have learned to respect their wants and needs in space, we are going to make a grand gesture that, like, that through line would have been better. However, what we get is, what could women possibly want? Optical flip. Yeah. And we're, that's what I'm saying. It's just like, we get the grand gesture, we get the reveal after of there being like, hey, we are dancing to show that we're okay with dancing. Yeah. We still aren't even dancing with you until the end. We didn't go,
And let me just say something. I feel like that's what was missing for me in this episode, was after the grand gesture, when all of the couples are dancing, I wish, since we already had this big showstopper, like fun TGIF commercial moment, that we got back to like some central romance with some of these key characters. Because, I mean, if we, just to go back to season 5 with you, like, okay, so we had this 2-part Chasing Angela episode, right? Then we do How to Succeed in Business, in which Topanga does really well, and Cory is always thinking about himself and focused on himself. Then we have this episode where Topanga's doing well and Cory's focused on himself. Then the next episode is a very Topanga Christmas, in which they purposely make Topanga way annoying, and I have issues about that. But it's just Cory kind of being very flippant about his relationship with Topanga. So I just wish that there was a moment where we got some romance, because we're leading up to the big like ski trip episode, and it's like, well, what relationship was even destroyed to begin with here? Because if you go back through the season 5 episodes, we've gotten nothing since season 4 with them. So it just feels like there could have been a moment to add some gravitas to a moment that was very light.
Also, to your point, I love that. But also, imagine if we had gone with every single couple and Shawn and Angela are like, hey, I'm sorry that I listened to Cory. I should be listening to you more. Feeny is like, hey, you know what? I'm out of the game, but I can be back in there, baby. Alan and Amy are just like, hey, we've been married for several years. I should have known better. And then you go to Cory, and Cory's like, I learned nothing. You know, like that whole thing of like Cory being steadfast in his thoughts and like holding his ground, and Topanga just kind of rolling her eyes. Well, guess what? When we go to the ski cabin later, we understand that Cory hasn't actually learned, and so the idea that he would cheat on Topanga makes sense. But the idea that we haven't done that, it just makes it seem like...
Can I fix it right now? The way you fix this whole thing...
Which, by the way, really quickly, we should have like a section called The Way You Fix It. Like, can I fix it?
Yes, can I fix it? Yes, you can.
Okay, keep going.
The way you fix this is just by, at that last scene where Cory and Topanga are dancing together, instead of like him doing like his little move or whatever, he says something to the effect of, you know what? I can see why you like dancing. This isn't too bad. And then she's like, see, you're a natural, or see, I knew you would like it. And then he responds with, what else do you like to do? As if to imply that next weekend they're going to do something else. And she could say like, oh, I've always wanted to try like ice skating. And he just kind of like gives her a look. And you kind of know that they're going to have adventures that they're going on based off of him taking an interest in her interests. That's how I would fix it.
That's it. And that's what I'm saying. And we wouldn't have gotten there if we just let it be, which again, this episode just kind of comes out and says, hey, men are idiots.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, but men don't have to be idiots. As we've seen with Nunzio and Sergio and even Eric, it's possible to know what women want, and it just involves listening to them and respecting them, which you don't do in this episode. And it shows. I like that we go from the boys not taking interest in what the girls are doing to them taking interest to what the girls are doing. But we don't get there until another man tells them what to do. And even then, they have to center themselves in the hobby first before they can join the women.
Ain't that Mendo? Ain't that Mendo? That's what I mean.
You're not wrong.
It's not wrong. So I'm kind of here for it.
Okay. I do want to say there were quite a few things in this episode that I did enjoy.
Okay.
I did enjoy the idea of Cory going and saying, hey, remember, we're not even going to tell them that we're here or that we're angry to beat up the boss. We're just going to pretend like we're here for burritos.
Yeah.
And then immediately Shawn is just like, we're here to beat up your boss. Shawn. And get a burrito. That, and then also the line that Eric says to Feeny, which is he goes, how did I miss this? Something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
Feeny is like, how did I not know this? And Eric says, it's because I'm in college and you're still in high school. That was funny. That was a really fun joke. And that felt like that dynamic I enjoy. Always enjoy Eric.
Wrote that joke down too because I thought it was really great.
Absolutely. Anything else that you like or didn't like about this episode? We barely talked on, and it's for good reason, Cookie and Sonia, besides the fact that they wanted a green card.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else. I mean, this episode is very simple, but like I said, I think it's intentionally simple. I think it's simple so that we can focus on more characters, and I think the whole point is for the audience to say, "Man, these men just won't get it." Like we've gotten it since the first scene. When will they get it? I think that's all intentional. So I don't know. I don't really have much else.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Another thing, you said you don't have much else. I just realized we should have had the moment where they called Sergio or Nunzio.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the thing. It turns out they were like, he's there. Topanga's like, where'd you learn these moves? And
Yeah.
it turns out that Nunzio taught the boys
a fun montage, a fun dancing montage of them learning how to dance together would be so much more fun.
So much more fun. That's what I'm saying. Like I want to have fun, and I want to see our characters learn. That's
part of what made Dirty Dancing fun was you had watched them practice that lift up until the buildup of it. So it could have just added to the excitement of all of the whole thing of their final performance if you saw them struggling to get there.
Well, I think it's supposed to be a big reveal of what it's going to be, which everyone, like a lot of people talk about this episode. They love this episode because we get this Magic Mike moment of Feeney, and I think it's the fact that it's Feeney and Bill is also dancing, but Feeney and Eric and Alan and Jack and all the boys are on stage and they're doing their little dance.
It's a fun moment.
It's a fun moment, but I wish we would have gotten like them being like, "Hey, I know someone." You know what I mean? I know someone who could help. I think a line like that would have really made this better. Okay. Do you have a bruh moment?
Yeah, I have a huge bruh moment that we have not talked about that I've been saving for this.
I just asked you if you had it because
I was saving it for this moment. Cory says at the beginning of the episode, an El Grande burrito special is $2.99. Later on, they say a seafood enchilada special is $3.50. I could pay $6.50, not including tax or tip, for that meal. I tried to DoorDash that meal to myself today. $37, not cash, not tip, not any delivery fees, just $37 out the door. That's my bruh moment. What the fuck's going on with food, guys? What's going on?
I don't even know what to say because that's accurate.
No, that is the biggest bruh moment of this episode.
Inflation is out of control.
Out of control.
So much so my mind just glossed over those prices because when I hear stuff like that, it just makes you immediately angry.
Yeah,
I couldn't walk into a Mexican restaurant with $2.
No. Like I get why they were there every day because the food prices were pricing well. All right.
Exactly. Okay.
Do you have a bruh moment?
My bruh moment is going to be I'm gonna bring it back serious and just say the idea of maybe we can talk. Maybe we should just listen to them. And it's kind of played like a laugh. And we're like, but then again, we don't actually show them listen to the women. So there's that. Also, Cory forbidding. Again, I this is a me thing. You can't forbid me to do anything.
There's no faster way for me to do something than for you to tell me I'm forbidden to do it. There's no faster way to lose your girl than to constantly annoy her about her more attractive friend. Like, just come on, bruh. Like, be smart about this.
Exactly. And to that point, I was going to say one of my favorite lines from any TV show, but it's from Friends, is when Rachel's sister Jill says, "Can't have." The only thing I can't have is dairy. And like, to me, that is such a well-written line. But also, anytime someone tells me I can't do something, I'm like, the only thing I can't do is XYZ. Okay.
Sure.
What grade are you giving this episode? Oh, wait. Before we do grades, what's the
lesson?
Yeah.
My lesson is that, like, if you don't treat your girls right, other men will. Like, get your shit together.
I like it.
Get your shit together. That's it.
That's a good one. I think the lesson is listen to women.
Yeah.
Specifically when they talk about what they want. Like, again, it's not just listen to women for everyday life. It's listen to women when you're confused about what a woman might want.
Honestly, like, I could see why they struggle to know what a woman would want. This episode came out in December of 1997. We did not get Mel Gibson's What Women Want until 2001. So, like, I get it. they didn't have the movie to watch to know.
I knew where you were going with it the moment you said, I understand why they don't know what women want. Good for you. Good for you. Okay, what grade are you giving this episode?
Originally, my original grade for this episode was a C. I am giving this episode a B. Full grade up. Full grade up.
Full grade up. Interesting. I can't do that because of all the strings. I enjoyed this episode. I thought that outside of Cory, which we've talked about, is playing more angry know-it-all than curious hijinks. Because of that, it's still just a C+ for me. But I did enjoy this episode, and I did like the ultimate lesson. And what dance floor are we at?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I can tell you that according to IMDb, so this is IMDb, don't blame me if it's wrong. The club at the end, or the outside shot of the club at the end, is the same club that Wayne and Garth go to in the beginning of Wayne's World.
Oh wow, that's a fun little.
And the restaurant that Topanga and Angela work at is Chubby's, just
of course
Mexican tables. But to that point, at least we are going somewhere else.
Yeah, they decided to change the set around for it. Yeah. Exactly. The name of the club was the Boom Boom Room. Was that Ray's Boom Boom Room?
Ray's Boom Boom Room?
No? Okay. All right.
I don't
the real ones, though.
What's Ray's Boom Boom Room? It sounds familiar.
Ray's Boom Boom Room?
Wait, is that Life?
Yes!
I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I know Ray's Boom Boom Room. And I know Eddie Murphy says Ray's Boom Boom Room. But what does he say it in? And I thought of Life immediately.
Yeah.
Ah, man. That you watch. Okay. So homework. What homework do you have?
So it's still the Christmas season. I just saw The Holiday for the first time the other day. Let me just talk to you about my journey with this movie, okay?
Okay.
I had never seen The Holiday. I walked into this movie and I was like, you know what? I'm really not a big Jude Law person. I also don't hugely care for Cameron Diaz, which is why I've kind of avoided the movie for a while, right? And so I'm watching this movie and I'm immediately like, well, I'm rooting for Kate Winslet and Jack Black. But as I watched this movie, how the tables turned for me, where I was like, Jack Black is kind of a douchebag.
Is he? I haven't seen the movie, but everyone knows that Jack Black is supposed to be lovable.
He's supposed to be lovable, but he's basically like hanging out, flirting / dating with Kate Winslet the entire time. Everyone knows he has a girlfriend.
First of all, spoilers, but second of all,
okay, I don't know. Like, I just remember watching this movie thinking, oh, I'm gonna root for these two. And by the end of the movie, I was so hard on Jude Law and Cameron Diaz. I was like, yes, you guys are supposed to be together. I'm rooting for you. I am rooting against Jack Black and Kate Winslet. So that was my journey I had with that movie. And because of that, I just wanted to throw that out. I'm sure audience has seen it, but it was my first time.
Absolutely. We'll have to put it on our list of possible rewatches in the future. Okay. For my homework, very much in your lane, I just saw Anyone But You. Have you heard about this movie?
The Sydney Sweeney, Glenn Powell movie?
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
I just saw it, and I have to say, we had a good time. It
really?
Is what you want from a rom-com. Is it good acting? No. Is it predictable? Yes. But it does so in such a fun way that you're like, yeah, I'm watching a rom-com. Yeah, you know what it feels like? Watching it felt very much like how we felt watching this in season 5. When you haven't had good content in a while and you get something that's kind of good, you're like, honestly, you did it. I don't hate myself, so you get a better grade. And that's how I feel about Anyone But You. I feel like I will say every woman in our theater they were involved. They loved it. My husband literally turned to me and said, women love this movie. And it's not just because Glenn Powell is gorgeous, but I thought that they did a really good job of making you invested enough, care about the characters enough. The side characters are fun enough. They are self-aware enough. It's almost paint by numbers, but in a way, I was talking to someone earlier. It reminds me of Easy A. You know how Easy A is a teen comedy that's making fun of teen comedies, but it's also will tell you we're doing this part of the teen comedy, and you're like, you know what? I don't care. You're good cast, good people. I'm having a good time. You do you.
All right.
That's how I felt about Anyone But You. Fun time, and then also Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney, gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely.
This movie.
That's what they're selling the movie on, right?
And that's what this movie is like. We know what you came for, and we will give it to you.
Right.
And I gotta say, that's what I want. You know what I came for, and you're giving it to me. Yes, thank you. That's how I feel about this movie.
You know, I have to say, I've been on a classic rom-com kick. Like I said, I just watched The Holiday. I also just watched Legally Blonde for the first time this year.
You just watched Legally Blonde for the first time?
It was great. It was great.
For the first time?
Yeah.
We will have to have a conversation about this. I don't even know what to do with that information.
Sorry. I mean, when I think about the time it came out, like, yeah, no, like, me and my niggas wasn't watching shit like that. I don't know what to say. Like,
y'all, I want y'all to notice the only way he could get out of that was to bring the niggas into it. And that was it.
We just weren't watching shit like that. So, but like to go back and revisit it, especially like knowing the legacy of it, I'm like, wow, this is really good. But anyways, I only say that to say that there's a lot of key rom-coms from the aughts in the 90s that I'm taking in for the first time because I initially wrote them off. Barbie kind of showed me, hey, like, you know, new ways of thinking, like engage with something new. But I can see the ones why they work, in the classics why they're classics. Right. And so I'm interested to see the movie that you talked about to see how it stacks up against.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say. Very, very much like if you are a student of rom-coms, which you said you are doing, Anyone But You should fulfill that need. And again, to me, it felt like a step above a Netflix rom-com, but not quite your early 2000s, but definitely taking inspiration.
What's the worst rom-com, would you say?
Here's the thing. I am not the one to say that. Please, if you have an opinion, write us and let us know what you think the worst rom-com is. Because everyone has their own answers. I'm not going to lie. Specifically because you asked and because of the time of year, I despise Love Actually.
Oh, I just rewatched Love Actually. It is my favorite hate watch for the holidays. I love it.
You said favorite, and I was like, oh, and then you said hate watch. I was like, okay. Because that movie, you guys know me by now. I have a problem when you are telling me you're doing one thing and you're actually doing a different thing. Because you can just say that this is what I wanted to do. But when you tell me that these are the most romantic stories that I should be rooting for, and every single one of them is problematic, there's not a single storyline where you're not like, someone should call the cops.
The most romantic storyline is between the deadbeat rock star and his manager. That's the only one I feel comfortable rooting for throughout that whole movie.
Absolutely. And what does that say? Yeah. So anyway, to me, that I can't say it's the worst rom-com, but that is one that
Okay, all right. So if that's on the scale of Love Actually to I don't know, When Harry Met Sally, like where is the Sydney Sweeney?
Oh, it's closer to the higher end.
Okay, all right.
Again, it's not, you don't quite hit those heights. I'll give it a 27 Dresses.
Oh, okay. A fine Sunday afternoon matinee.
Exactly. Some good time. You're gonna have a really good time. You're gonna bond as a couple, or if you go out with your friends, you're gonna have some fun chat. It's very, again, it's self-aware. It knows its characters. I'm gonna wrap it up because I feel like we've been talking about this movie for too long. But nonetheless, I think everyone should go see it. Continue to reach out to us at Bruh Meets World at gmail.com or at Bruh Meets World on all of the social platforms. You can find our Patreon, you can find our merch shop, you can find us out in the club.
You can also leave voice messages for us on our brummiesworld.com website. So be sure to do that so we can get your voices on this podcast, get your questions, get your concerns. What did we miss? What did we leave out? Let us know. We need your insight.
Absolutely. And also, don't forget to dream.
Don't forget to try.
and to do good.
Later, bros.
Later, bros.
This episode of Bro Meets World was produced by Ceej and edited by Tony Curtis. Bro Meets World is a 2 Free Tokens media production.
Later, bros.
Bye.
Bye.
When this boy meets world.